as well as LinkedIn. So we have hundreds of users there who have not registered but can access the webinar directly from CSC, LinkedIn, and Facebook page. Thank you, Sukanya. Can we start now, Sukanya?
Yes, Nimit, we can start. We are live.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled Relax the Tax. Please do not get excited. It's not about individual income tax, but today we are going to talk about tax on entrepreneurs, recycling the dirty waste and trash generated by each one of us. CSE has a long history of working for inclusion of informal sector in the waste management segment of the country. Earlier it was MSW. The whole talk was around rag pickers. But now the definition has expanded to plastic, waste, biomedical, C&D, metal scrap, industrial hazardous and non-hazardous waste. Last year, we released a report titled Good Practices in Industrial Waste Circularity. In the report, we compiled 23 case studies from different sectors. If I'm not wrong, it was around 12 sectors. 23 case studies from 12 sectors. What we found was industrial waste circularity has 3 advantages: pollution control, improved waste management, and conservation of natural resources. But these initiatives are either not upscaled to their maximum potential, or if done, the circularity of different waste is relatively low. One of the major problems identified was waste sector still remains dominated by informal players, as there is very little incentive for them to enter the mainstream market. There are few sectors where formalization is high, such as you say fly ash or C&D. But look at the e-waste sector. E-waste supply chain has about 90% of informal player. Supply chain of waste paper is dominated by 95% of informal player. Metal scrap, both ferrous and non-ferrous, also has about 65% of supply chain in the hand of informal sector. Not today. I am not getting into the debate where the problem lies. We are here to discuss one important lever which has potential to change the waste management landscape in the country, and it is GST, Goods and Services Tax. GST is not something bothering only the small player, but also the big and middle one as well. It is a growing sector managing the reject of the country. It needs preferential treatment, which it is not receiving. I like to share with everyone, last week, Solid Waste Management team of CSE released its report on pathway to the inclusion of waste picker, where different models were discussed for the same. Today, we are here to discuss another lever, and that is called GST. My colleague Subrajit Goswami has done an amazing analysis correlating percentage formalization of informal sector to GST collection. And he has got something interesting to share with us. But before I move to Subrajit, I would like to introduce the panelists for today's discussion. Today we have with us Mr. Pransu Singhal. Pransu is founder and managing director of Karo Sambhav. Karo Sambhav is a leading expert Pransu is a leading expert in the circular economy and extended producer responsibility. His organization focuses on sustainable solutions for various waste streams, including e-waste, plastic, batteries, glass, and tires. Recognized as Social Entrepreneur of the Year 2021 by the Swamp Foundation World Economic Forum. Pransu's extensive experience include leadership role at Microsoft and Nokia, and he actively contributes to national and international committees on circular economy and SDGs goal. Dr. Sandeep Chatterjee, he is a distinguished global policymaker and techno administrator with 35 years of experience in sustainable electronics. As senior advisor at Sustainable Electronics Recycling International, USA, and adjunct professor at IIT Mandi, he champions responsible refurbishing, recycling standard, and data sanitization. Formerly a senior director at the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Dr. Chatterjee is a recognized expert in e-waste, circular economy, and resource efficiency with over 60 publications and 10 patents. Mr. Imtiaz Ali is a project director of Plastic Waste Management Rag Pickers Upliftment Project at Sarthak Sanstha Bhopal. Imtiaz Ali is a veteran in waste management. For over 2 decades, he pioneered solid and plastic waste management and e-waste management, replicating the Bhopal model as a sustainable solution across different states and cities. I was in the Bhopal last month and was fascinated to see the way Imtiaz ji is doing different, managing different kinds of waste stream. He is a recognized Swachh ambassador and has trained over 80,000 individuals and received numerous national and international awards for his contribution. I will come to my colleague Subrajit. He is a program officer at CSE with over 7 years of experience in the environmental policy advocacy sector. He currently focuses on cross-sectoral issues such as circular economy, energy transition, and air pollution within CSE's industrial pollution team. Now it's over to you, Subrajit. You have got around 10 to 12 minutes.
Thank you so much for the introduction, sir. And we'll start with our presentation of our latest report. I will share the screen. I think it's visible to everyone right now.
Yes.
So a very good evening, afternoon to everyone. Chiran, thank you very much for joining in this very interesting and crucial topic, that is the GST on industrial waste. So every day we go out from our house and look into different places, waste lying here and there. We feel that like maybe it's a local government issue, maybe local government's issue, maybe like it's a local issue. But if we look into this issue, it's otherwise a kind of policy issue of a country. It's somehow also dependent on policy. Our waste management, there are multiple reasons why our waste management of India is not up to mark. One of 1,000 reasons are there. One of them is certainly we'll talk about today, that is the tax on waste. It's very surprising that when end of life product is getting reutilized or recycled, that is, and we have a tax for that. So before going into the the overall content of this report, let's talk about why this study. What are the challenges the circular economy is currently facing? India is one of the country in the world, among many, obviously, who are majorly dependent on natural resource extraction. Our natural ESC Economic Advisory Committee of Prime Minister's report says that our resource extraction is 2.5 times higher than global average, and our resource demand will triple by 2030. But there is also an opportunity in that. 750 million ton waste potential is there for 2030 as per CSE study. And this waste potential can be obstructed by one of a problem that is one of a problem we say that can be obstructed some way through the taxation of this waste. Current GST, that current tax, that is GST, is actually in our country is basically formulated for take-make-dispose linear kind of model. But as we have kind of started practicing the circularity in our country since last 1 decade majorly, our business kind of changed. For us, the general business are business to consumer. We sell something to consumer, business to business, or direct to consumer. But in terms of waste circularity or waste management, it's a consumer to business model. Essentially, we produce the waste, and the recyclers and different ecosystem involved in this are basically managing the waste. So, but unfortunately, in our country, we don't have any differentiation between virgin and recycled material. For example, a virgin plastic and recycled plastic is under same tax slab. And it creates kind of artificial price barrier for those who are practicing recycling. And it also leads to informal operation more and more, which subsequently leads to crores of annual revenue loss due to tax. Then if we look into how this current framework works, where there is formal operation, there is GST paid in each transaction. And where there is not informal, somehow through reverse charge mechanism or other way, some way it is kind of the market, like a percentage of the share is going. So if we talk about the methodology of this report, so we have identified total 14 different waste stream. We wanted this study to be more like expanded in different, the sectors. So one of like among these 40, few of them are under 10 identified waste stream of Niti Aayog. And we started with the quantity of the waste generated in different sector, but data is so fragmented. We had to rely on some other, the other data. That is the market analysis report of different market analysis research organizations such as Ostic Analysis or some these other research organization. So what we have done here, we just collected 3 data. That is total market size. Second is the tax which is implied on this sector, and third is the total the growth rate of this market size. So based on this, we have calculated the percentage of share of informal and formal sector. And we have also, we got the data of percentage of share through interaction with various association and experts. And then we calculated the total market of formal market as well as informal market in India. So what we then did, we tried to identify what will happen 10 years after that, after today, 10 years from now. Into 20 to 35, the market will grow as per the growth data. And the GST, what we are essentially, what we are collecting right now, if nothing changes in business as usual scenario, the government loss of GST will be more higher. So this is, I'll quickly go into this table. I will not explain all the numbers. I'll just say, this is the market value we are talking about. We collected in from this different, this is the percentage utilization of informal sector, the second column. Third column is the GST rate. We calculated the formal market size based on this percentage, how much formal percentage is there, how much informal is there. And then we have calculated how GST is collected. When it's a formal market, we are presuming that GST is collected from that. Where it's informal, we are presuming it as a loss of government because no GST essentially comes from informal operations. This is the today's scenario. If we now focus on like two numbers at the end and end corner, right corner, that is 30,890 crore and 65,000 crore. So what we are essentially finding from this table is today's scenario, government is how much government is collecting as a revenue, they are losing the double amount essentially due to not so formal operation. And another reason is certainly you can look for the third column, that is the GST rate. GST rate of plastic waste, metal waste, e-waste are 18%, which we feel slightly higher given we are trying to recycle more and more. This is the scenario of like 2035, 10 years after that. If you look at the same number in the right corner, it is 86,000 crore collection and 1.7 lakhs crore loss. So now if we look at different scenario, how this scenario can be changed. So we have seen four different scenarios. Scenario one is reducing informal participation by 50%. Reducing, we meant to say, it's not, they are coming into the umbrella of GST, more formal and better operation, efficient operation. And tax rate reduced from 18% to 12%. Scenario two for us is reducing informal participation by 50%, tax rate flat 5% for all. And scenario three, which is more ideal situation, that is 100% formalization and tax rate 18 to 12%. And scenario four is 100% formalization, tax rate flat 5% for all. In all the scenarios, we can see essentially the net collection of net GST, that is net GST collection minus GST loss, is current scenario is almost loss of 86,000 crore, which will increase in all the scenarios. Though 100%, the highest amount is 1.82 lakhs crore, but even the minimum operation, that is 50% like participation as well as 5% tax, will give us 34,000 crores of net collection of government. So now we'll go to the next slide, where CSE as an environmental organization, environmental policy research organization, why you are interested in lowering GST or maybe rationalizing GST. Our focus is completely clear. We are looking it through a social or environmental lenses. We are trying to given that resource exploitation we are like exploration we are said before, we are trying to boost more recycling. Our presumption is lower GST can encourage circular waste utilization, reduce dependence on natural resource exploitation, and it will subsequently benefit environment. And another part is the due to informal operation, how like we want a healthy working condition, a better efficient technology who are operating informally in our country. So these two major topic has been our focus to do this study. That is our intention from this study. So the purpose of this study is to raise a dialogue among all the stakeholders. We have reached out to people, as well as through this webinar, we are trying to aware among these stakeholders how this issue should be looked into. So we have few recommendations. Recommendation of a systematic change. The first thing start with lowering the tax or rationalizing the tax on waste recycling. It can be done through a phased manner as per the government decides, but it should be reduced from current high rate because 18% is extremely higher for different sectors. Then there is obviously another crucial part, that is integration of informal workers into formal system through a hand-holding. And that waste we should come, like it's very simple argument that if we can put more people under the GST umbrella through a low GST rate, it will and through some sort of government assistance to these people with legal recognition, fair wages, access to health, different other aspect, as well as their right reserved of selling their waste. This can be more and more people will come into this sector. And then there come up incentivizing different companies or industries that recycling with proper compliance. Currently, we also have recycling rules called EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility. And there are multiple recyclers in country who are trying to comply. There should be, because they, in some way, benefiting the environment by not extracting more and more resources, and they are also doing a good other proper work. So that's why there should be some incentive for those, and this tax relaxation or tax rationalization can help them. And there is another aspect which is extremely crucial. There should be a cross-ministry coordination. If we look at extended producer responsibility, that is mostly looked after by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, whereas the GST issue is majorly looked after by Ministry of Finance. Given the thing we are trying to establish a circular economy, these two ministries should work together and formulate a way. Then then fourth recommendation will be the city level plans with civil society organization. There are multiple civil society organizations who are working in this sector, and they operate in different small cities as well as multiple cities. So it will be easier for like give handholding to these waste businesses or small businesses to transition to a informal to formal way smoothly. And also there should be a shared recycling hub, because small players who can't afford a sorting space or other like space before recycling, they can use a shared space, and government incentive should be there. And we have different policies, different schemes, different goals, climate goals, different other goals, recycling goals. For example, National Steel Policy 2030 will try to use more recycled steel. Recently, non-ferrous EPR came, which says we'll try to use more and more recycled non-ferrous material in production. So there should be policy which matches our goal. So that is the overall recommendation of our report. This is, you can read in more detail from our report by downloading the links. And finally, we want to conclude this by saying that this is beyond financial gain, beyond like asking for tax. We should also prioritize human welfare. Today in India, millions of people are involved in this waste management work, involved in this ecosystem. They deserve a recognition, a safety, a social security, and it will subsequently contribute to the environmental protection. That's all from my side. Thank you everyone for listening to it. Like maybe if you need a second.
You can remove your presentation now.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Subrajit, for setting the agenda.
Yeah.
From your presentation, one thing is very clear, especially for policy maker. There will not be any loss of money, even if you reduce GST. Very well said. Now, I will move to, now people have started putting their questions as well. I will take one first. Mudit has said base products should attract 1% GST only. Our Director General Sunita ji said base should not be taxed. It should be 0%. Mamta ji has put something very technical, Pransu. You may answer it later on. Now my next question goes to Pransu. Pransu, first two questions to you. I would like to hear first your reaction on Subrajit's presentation, and secondly, how does current GST structure put recycled material at cost disadvantage compared to virgin material? And what differential rate would make the waste sector competitive? Pransu?
Thank you, Nivit. And first of all, let me applaud the work done by CSC on this report. Very, very important topic and very fundamental to making corrections in the way EPR is being implemented at a country level. And especially if we want an economy which is circular and most importantly, an economy which enables use of recycled content to a much larger proportion as we go ahead. This is a very, very important thing to address. Now, there are 2 points, like Surajit very powerfully mentioned in his address, that at one end, government is making significant losses because of lack of traceability mechanism on what is really happening. And at the other end, it is also disenabling the recycling in itself. So actually, no one is winning in the present scenario, and that's the challenge that we all should look at. It. How do we make both the parties win? Government should end up getting more taxes, as well as recyclers should be enabled to do more. Whether it is recyclers, whether it is collection organizations, whether it is manufacturers who are going to utilize the recycled content. So how do we create incentives across the value chain from collection to recycling to reutilization of material? That is imperative. Now let me bring 2 or 3 points. But again, fantastic report, very, very valid points that have been put. So a couple of points that I'd like to bring, and I'll take case example of Karosambhav itself, because for last 7 years, we have been trying to work on collection mechanisms, and now we also have recycling plants. There are 2, or let me start with one very, very prominent issue. Now, when I started Karosambhav, and in dialogue with whether it is MeitY or Ministry of Environment, Climate and Forests, or any other large body, everyone encouraged creating systems which are which will enable formalization in the country, which means handhold informal sector very strongly. It has also come out in your report. Make sure that you are starting to define what is formal, because definition of formal is also unknown. So we started with very simple thing. Okay, a proprietary firm ho at least, and then uske baad aur acha hai to ek partnership firm ho. But start with a registered firm. Don't be just like that. And then, at least our payment should be going in the bank accounts. And third, because most cases we were finding that people were beyond 20 lakhs ka, mechanism, so they should be having a valid GST number. We started very simply with these 3 things, and we had a fairly large project with IFC, International Finance Corporation, which enabled this sort of. Now, over hundreds of organizations, aggregators, started formalizing. We did trade of, I would say, over a few hundred crores of trade has already been done. Now, the challenge that we very, very, very strongly face in this case, at one end, while government is suggesting go for informal sector, GST officials tell us completely something, opposite. Almost every GST official tells us stop working with the informal sector because this is not clean. And yes, I recognize this is not clean, and hence the pathway to clean it up, 95% or maybe even more waste ends up being informal. And if we don't end up cleaning it up, then how do we operate? While I understand GST officials' pains that, they have no traceability, the challenge it creates for organizations like us is we are today deterred, very strongly deterred to even go and work with informal. Because of, simple reasons which have very aptly been put in the report. So as a formal entity, we would have an e-way bill, we would have an e-invoice, we would have a consignment note, digital payments have been made, GSTR1 is filed, GSTR3B is filed. On the portal of GST, we can do a vendor check if it's an active vendor, we can do a check of returns filing. However, we have no visibility of the kind of input that this vendor is taking. So, and then, subsequent, even if we try to build visibility on the first layer, we don't know what's happening on the second layer and the third layer and the fourth layer. Now, as per GST officials, what we face is, we are at fault. So, organizations who are trying to formalizations, organizations who are doing digital payment, who are completely open with their books, are being put at fault that somewhere if someone is using a wrong input from GST side, it is the fault of the formalized entity. Now, this honestly is creating a huge deterrence that why should we even continue this work? Because this is, at best I can deposit, and we have done whatever we could do. So this is one big issue, that is being faced today. And a second big issue which is appearing is that no one looks at waste as an incentive or recycled content as an incentive because GST amount or the taxation is at the same rate. So from a manufacturing point of view, there is like, okay, what's the point? Anyway, it will always be unpredictable quality. It will always have some missing technical specifications. There is lack of precision. And these are known facts. So why should a manufacturer even touch this until unless forced by law? Like in PET, or in many other plastics, there's a force by law, which is demanding, but there is no voluntary participation in these things. And that needs to change. Now, just one last point, sorry, before I close. There are 2 or 3 things, and very strongly, aptly put by Nimit in the report, but 2 things which I believe are, if anyone should do that, they should touch this. First is bring reverse charge. Organizations like us or many others like us are happy to pay GST directly to government instead of passing it to the vendor, because we don't know how is the input being claimed by whosoever in the value chain. Especially after it is 2nd tier, 3rd tier, 4th tier, we have zero visibility. The portal just doesn't give us that visibility. So allow us to do reverse charge, bring in reverse charge mechanisms for all waste varieties. For us, that will solve the biggest nightmare of participating. Second, reduce the tax. So apart from these 2, I really can't think of anything else. There are many other suggestions which are there. But if these 2 are done, I believe in person that everything will sort itself out if we can make this happen. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Pransu. Very well said. How can we create a system or environment which is a win-win situation both for recycler as well as for government? You have touched upon this reverse GST. Can you answer to this Mamta Jain question, who is saying taxing end of life should be reverse actually? Is there a concept of reverse GST instead of GST?
So there are reverse GST mechanisms already in the country. They are being applied in certain sectors. So what we are recommending is, if this can be applied to the overall sector, especially, wherever we are talking of EPR, because then, government directly gets the tax instead of, someone claiming input on it. And someone, if they want to claim input, they should directly talk to government and get an input from that side. So in that way, organizations like ours, or, when I say ours, I'm talking on behalf of so many recyclers or collection agencies across the country who today carry the burden that even if we are trying to formalize, the GST office is going to penalize it. And in most cases, the only dialogue that we keep on hearing from GST officials is stop working with informal. I mean, that's a, unhidden rule, unhidden suggestion, unspoken, loudly, but almost at all places we are being told do not work with informal. So we would like to change that if we directly deposit the charge, then it is just solved.
Thank you, Pransu. Mamta Jain has asked, hi Subrajit, what were the studied sector as part of methodology? Is textile a part of the study? And is the study focused only on industrial waste? Subrajit, quickly.
Yeah, we didn't look into textile essentially, but otherwise we have focused both on industrial waste as well as plastic other waste. So it's a combined waste because waste is a problem, which is kind of like we are talking about the problem of waste here. So we have focused on both, but textile is not there.
Okay, thank you. Sandeep ji, again, as I ask Pransu, the first is your first reaction on Subrajit's presentation. And secondly, how does current GST policy impact informal sector's livelihood, and what tax changes could formalize and dignify their role in the circular economy? Sandeep ji.
Thank you, Nividji. I should first congratulate CSC and especially, appreciate the Subhrojit effort for, taking a very important issue, because once we are talking about the waste management, we only discuss about EPR and the challenges and all those things. These issues somehow get neglected for years, and very rightly, come up with some of the recommendation which will be really helpful for the policymakers. If you see the waste management and circular economy, especially if I'm discussing the digital technology, electronics and all, we are growing very fast, and present pace of economy actually fueled by digital technology. And this is digital technology is a material hungry technology. So with the AI infusion and all, we'll be disposing our electronics faster than few years back. And if you see the EPR, that actually the waste, we are talking about 30% of the waste. 70% will remain in informal domain in any way. If your tax structure is such a disruption, 18% onward, because if some recyclers are investing in technology and machineries, there is a huge investment. Then only you'll be having an environment-friendly recycling in the country. So those guys will require material. So only depending upon EPR, that is also cost sensitive. Few guys are going for 4 rupees. Few guys are, nobody is interested to give 22 rupees. So in that fashion, you are depriving of material. So only source is informal sector. As Karasambhav is doing, second version of the rule, they have made a real good attempt to integrate the informal sector. So there, the present GST structure is actually refraining them to work with informal sector, because the input tax, benefit they are not getting, because the 18% they will not be giving a bill. If they are giving some GST and all, that may be fake. Then they will be in the trouble. So in that way, majority of the recycler working in informal sector, they are working in cash or some other means, so they are not getting the credit for taking those material. So this is a catch-22 situation. So here I should mention, because in our country also a great country, we have different instances where we have actually applied tax structure intelligently and grew our industry. For our ministry, if you see the 90s, late 90s or mid 90s, there is a mushrooming of industry on IT industry was growing in the country. Basically, these are all informal in domain. And now you see how IT industry has grown, because that time Ministry of Electronics and IT come up with a STPI scheme. So basically the tax scheme, one should understand, because the waste stream require that type of nurturing. So tax holiday, lot of many things. You have started with the subject. I'll be interested CSC to study STPI or other scheme where giving a tax benefit, how one sector has been taken to the next level. So I meant to say, if really you are interested to make a leader in artificial intelligence, additive manufacturing, drone, all those industry, you will be actually generating more waste. Now we are the third highest generator in electronic waste. Maybe another 2 years we will be in the second rank. So those waste material is basically the input material for the recycling industry. So whatever the tax structure required in the country, so, and we should learn from the European Union, they are having a repairing product almost taxless. So that will encourage the consumer to go for that type of product. So that is also missing in our country. And recycled materials having a different price tag. So this is also another issue need to be taken. And income tax, like STBI, you have done for 10 years tax benefit for recycling industry or refurbishment industry. Those things has to be given so that the circular economy in reality we can capture. So that will be my take in a first, introductory comment.
Thank you, Sandeep ji. Very interesting. But you have said very well. If I look at for last 10 years, what our policy maker have done, it is all about EPR, EPR. And what is the actual status of EPR? God knows. Now, Pransu again, Mr. Kamaljeet has said, sir, you cannot be serious. Give me one supplier who agrees to reverse charges. Please elaborate.
So, Nimit, I think there are many views on this thing. I have shared what is my view, and there could be divergent views. That doesn't mean what Kamaljeet ji is saying is right or wrong. So, I believe, because I am stating from my perspective, the challenges that we are facing. That while we are facing all GST to downstream suppliers, we are being, organizations like us are being held accountable for input frauds which are happening, 2 to 3 years down the chain. So if we do not have visibility, how do we even know that? And this is very, very strongly highlighted in a diagram, in a flowchart in your report, very strongly highlighted. So that is the point I'm saying, that how do we enable this formalization? We are happy to pay tax directly then to the government instead of passing it to the vendor and waiting for him to deposit. So that's my simple point.
Thank you, Pransu. I will come to Imtiaz ji. Imtiaz ji, if I go through Subrajit, Pransu, and Sandeep ji, a consensus has been built through the discussion that expanding the umbrella of GST is essential. With a low GST rate, high GST collection can be achieved. However, there is an issue which has been highlighted. The informal sector does not want to comply. Though we have heard different things on the ground, what can the government scheme that will enable the system to integrate them without cost disadvantage through GST rationalization? On the ground पे क्या हो रहा है इम्तियाज जी, वो आपसे जानना चाहते हैं।
सर्वप्रथम तो सुब्रजीत जी ने जो प्रेजेंटेशन दिया, ग्रास रूट पे जो इश्यूज हैं बहुत हद तक उन्होंने उन्हें कवर करने की कोशिश की है, लेकिन आज भी जो ग्राउंड लेवल पे जो इश्यूज हैं, जो हम इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर की बात कर रहे हैं या रैक पिकर्स की बात कर रहे हैं, 90% लोग ऐसे हैं कि जो चाहते ही नहीं है कि हम ऑर्गेनाइज वे में इस मटेरियल को सेल करें, क्योंकि जैसे ही वो ऑर्गेनाइज वे में आने की बात करते हैं तो उन्हें प्रोसेसिंग के लिए पॉल्यूशन कंट्रोल बोर्ड की परमिशन की जरूरत पड़ती है। सेकेंडली, जैसे ही इनके यहाँ लेबर की बात आती है तो लेबर एक्ट के तहत उनको ईपीएफ और सारी चीजें करनी होती है। इसके अलावा फिर वो जीएसटी के अंदर आते हैं, तो इन सारे झंझटों से वो बचना चाहता है। तो सबसे पहले ग्रास रूट पे जो इश्यूज है कि जो प्राइमरी लेवल पे जो कलेक्शन हो रहा है, चाहे वो रैक पिकर्स हो, चाहे वो ऊपर जो कबाड़ी वाला है, वो इस सिस्टम में आना क्यों नहीं चाह रहा है। हमें उनकी प्रॉब्लम्स को पहले शॉर्ट आउट करना होगा। जब तक कि उनकी प्रॉब्लम्स को डायग्नोज करके गवर्नमेंट को उनका सॉल्यूशन नहीं मिलेगा, तब तक हम आगे की बात नहीं कर पाएंगे। तो हमने जो चीजें भोपाल में देखी, इंदौर में देखी, मध्य प्रदेश में देखी हैं कि अभी भी 90% लोग इस सिस्टम में आना नहीं चाह रहा है। उसका रीजन ये है कि कहीं ना कहीं वो गवर्नमेंट से उस तमाम चीजों को छुपाकर काम करना चाह रहे हैं, चाहे वो ई वेस्ट का हो, चाहे वो प्लास्टिक वेस्ट हो, चाहे वो अदर वेस्ट हो। अभी वर्तमान में हम लोगों ने एक ऐसा प्रयास किया है कि भोपाल के पास ही एक 22 एकड़ के अंदर हम एक वेस्ट पार्क बनाने की बात गवर्नमेंट से कर रहे हैं और गवर्नमेंट ने मोस्टली जगह को फाइनल कर दिया है। वहां पर हम इन्हीं अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर के लोगों को 10,000 स्क्वायर फीट के एरिया देंगे, जहां वो डिफरेंट टाइप के वेस्ट को, चाहे वो एलडी वाले अलग होंगे, पीपी अलग होंगे, मिक्स प्लास्टिक का अलग होगा, रबर का अलग होगा, ई वेस्ट का अलग होगा, ग्लास का अलग होगा, सभी वेस्ट के लगभग 19 कैटेगरी के अंदर वहां छोटी छोटी इंडस्ट्रीज आएंगी। और उन अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर के लोगों को वहां पर छोटी छोटी इंडस्ट्री गवर्नमेंट स्कीम के तहत डेवलप करके हम वहां देंगे। और उसी लेवल पर एक सिंगल विंडो सॉल्यूशन ऐसा हो कि जो बड़े रिसाइकलर्स, एक्चुअली बीच में जो एक काम है कि हमने प्लास्टिक को कलेक्ट किया, बीच में एक बड़ा एजेंट बीच में आता है, वो उस प्लास्टिक को बाय करता है, उसके बाद फिर वो बड़े वाले व्यापारी को देता है, तीसरा फिर वो रिसाइकलर के पास जाता है। तो बीच का जो सिस्टम जो है यहां पर बड़ा ही लोचा, जिसे मैं कहूंगा इस भाषा के अंदर, वो है। तो इस सबको समाप्त करने की आवश्यकता है। अगर इसी तरह के इंटीग्रेटेड वेस्ट रिसाइकलिंग पार्क अगर बनते हैं, हमने 5 शहरों के अंदर प्रपोज किया है, इसमें भोपाल और मुंबई आगे बढ़ गया है। अगर ये सेंटर्स बनते हैं तो जो अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर के अंदर जो मटेरियल जा रहा है, क्योंकि ऊपरी लेवल पर ही जो है वो जीएसटी दिया जा रहा है, नीचे लेवल पर नहीं दिया जा रहा है। यदि जो हमारा वेस्ट कलेक्ट करने का जो सिस्टम है, अगर उस सिस्टम को ही हम वेल एस्टेब्लिश कर देंगे तो ऑटोमेटिकली जो सिस्टम में जो जीएसटी का प्रोसेस है वो प्रॉपर तरीके से दिखने लगेगा और सबके लिए लायबिलिटीज बनेगी। दूसरा, जो जीएसटी का जो परसेंटेज है 18%, जो मैम ने कहा कि मुझे तो लगता है कि इसे खत्म ही करना चाहिए, लेकिन हाँ, इसको कम से कम 8 से 12% के बीच में अगर लेकर आएंगे गवर्नमेंट, तो जितना ये 9 से 10% का लॉस गवर्नमेंट जो बता रहा है, अगर ये सारे अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर के लोग अगर 50% भी जीएसटी पे करने लगे, तो उस अमाउंट से अगर आप कंपेयर करेंगे तो वो कई हजार गुना ज्यादा वो अमाउंट्स होगा। तो इस मंच के माध्यम से मेरा गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया से अनुरोध है कि इस जो 18% का जो स्लैब है, इसको कहीं ना कहीं रिवाइज करके 8 से 12% के बीच में लेकर आए। दूसरा, आपने 18% उस छोटे व्यापारी पर भी लगाया हुआ है कि जो मटेरियल को कलेक्ट करके रिसाइकलर या ट्रेडर्स को दे रहा है, ट्रेडर्स के ऊपर भी वही है और ऊपर भी वही है। तो कहीं ना कहीं इस स्लैब्स को हमें कैटेगराइज करना होगा कि रिसाइकल करने वाले के लिए टैक्सेशन अलग परसेंटेज में हो, और जो निचले लेवल पे जो कलेक्ट करके उसको प्रोसेस करके आगे बढ़ा रहा है उसके लिए अलग हो। तो सभी कहीं ना कहीं इस पूरे जीएसटी के फॉर्मेट के अंदर आ जाएंगे और वो इस चीज को करेंगे। आज जो मार्केट के अंदर मैं देखता हूं कि ज्यादातर व्यापारी ये चाहते हैं कि आप कैश में फ्लो करिए या हवाला के थ्रू पेमेंट ले लीजिए, ये सिस्टम पूरा चल रहा है। जीएसटी के बिल जो हैं वो लोग खरीदते हैं, मतलब बाजार के अंदर जो है एजेंट घूमते रहते हैं कि मैंने अगर आज 5 लाख रुपए का मटेरियल किसी कंपनी को बेचा है, तो मेरे सीए के थ्रू या मेरे जो भी अकाउंटेंट हैं उनके थ्रू मेरे पास मैसेज आता है कि आप ये बिल क्या हमारे साथ इतने इतने % पे शेयर करना चाहेंगे। तो ऐसा अगर छोटे से शहर भोपाल में स्थिति ये है, तो दूसरे बड़े शहरों के अंदर स्थिति क्या होगी। तो नीति जो सरकार ने बनाई है धरातल पर बिल्कुल नहीं है, इसका जस्ट अपोजिट है। अगर नीति का निर्धारण अगर फील्ड पर अगर प्रॉपर तरीके से करना है, तो इस पूरे सिस्टम को 2 बार गंभीरता के साथ विचार करके इसको रिवाइज करने की आवश्यकता है। और जो रिसाइकल जो है, रिसाइकल और नॉन रिसाइकल के अंदर हमको एक डिफरेंट तय करके उस रेट्स को हमें करना होगा। इसके अलावा एक चीज और जो देखने में आ रही है फील्ड्स में कि बड़े बड़ी रिसाइकलिंग इंडस्ट्रियां तो बन गई हैं। मैं मध्य प्रदेश की अगर बात करूं तो आज 5 बड़ी बड़ी ई वेस्ट रिसाइकलिंग फैक्ट्रियां यहां पर बन गई हैं। बहुत ही हाईटेक उनकी मशीनरी है, सिस्टम है, मैं किसी का नाम नहीं लूंगा। वो पूरा मार्केट से कॉपर एल्यूमिनियम जो है वो ग्रे मार्केट से पूरा परचेस कर लेते हैं, और उस कॉपर और जो भी मेटल वो कलेक्ट करते हैं उसको वो डायरेक्ट जीएसटी पर दिखाते हैं। और ई वेस्ट के अंदर अगर आप बात करेंगे तो उनका प्लांट महीनों तक चलता नहीं है, मशीनों पर धूल आ गई है, प्लांट के अंदर 5-5 फीट 4-4 फीट की घास उग गई है, लेकिन ऑन फाइल अगर आप देखेंगे तो सिर्फ ईपीआर के खेल के लिए वो प्लांट चलना है और पूरा प्रोसेसिंग उनका दिखाया जा रहा है। तो कहीं ना कहीं इस सिस्टम को गवर्नमेंट को बारीकी के साथ मॉनिटरिंग करना होगा। जैसा सीएसी ने आज फील्ड लेवल के अलग अलग लोगों को बुलाकर टैक्सेशन वाले इस फॉर्मेट के अंदर अपनी बात रखने का मौका दिया है। अगर शासन भी जब नीति निर्धारण करता है तो बड़े बड़े लोगों या यूएन एजेंसीज या अलग अलग एजेंसीज को बुलाकर बात ना करे, अगर वो ग्रास रूट के लोगों को लेकर बात करेगी तो निश्चित तौर पे एक अच्छा जीएसटी का स्लैब से एक अच्छा मॉडल निकल कर आएगा। और जो गवर्नमेंट को जो सुभजीत ने जो प्रेजेंटेशन सुबह दिया है कि कितना % गवर्नमेंट को लॉस हो रहा है, अगर इसको 2 बार रिवाइज करें तो निश्चित तौर पे मैं मानता हूं कि गवर्नमेंट बहुत फायदे का काम इसको करेगी।
धन्यवाद इम्तियाज जी। Very well said. Let me first ask Sandeep ji. Sandeep ji, you have got a good global experience. Well, based upon your global experience, what specific GST framework would you recommend for India to accelerate the circular economy while focusing environmental benefit? Maybe just share some good global practice. Sandeep ji.
Divit ji, whatever enthusiasts, Ali Saab कह रहे थे. So this is the if you are having enter informal space collection or some process, around 5%, less than 5%, to attract the in those sectors, because that is also a very different sectors. Waste collector, aggregator, then some level of processing, then they're selling it to formal sector. So that domain we require to have a very low GST, and which is actually can be absorbed by that entity and also the recycling sector. And we have to find out a mechanism like what Pransuji told, that they are being discouraged by the GST Council to work with informal sector. For that, I think how to take entire informal chain in a GST net, that is another exercise has to be done. I mean, Pansu mentioned few, imperative like Aadhaar card could be one, PAN card, bank account. Few initial thing you can start taking, and for informal net you require to have, this is another exercise required to be done, because waste is getting wasted more than getting recycled. And that is how what Bhopal Imtiaz ji has seen, that you have a plant, you have invested in machinery, but it is not running, because it's useless to run a plant without having a material. So that is also attracting a lot of malpractices carried out by the recycler also. You must have seen last few week, the report is also coming in News Laundry, and they have done actually the SPCP's work or CPCB's work, because they are not auditing, and they have done audit and found for years those plant not operational, and in some of the plant they do not have machineries. But interestingly, they got the EPR from the client. So if EPR is coming to a closed plant, that shows some big malpractices. So this is one thing we should see. I'm not saying this is in India. In international scenario also, these are all going on, because now we are coming to this type of regime, and we are interacting with the international agency now. Another important thing I have found, audit is one great thing, and it should be done with the international professional agency. Like we are working with SERI, they have a R2 certificate. So R2 certificate is taking care of downstream vendor process. That is actually taking care of the mass balancing of material flow. So if you are having a close net, because that is different type of audit, is not like ISO where you will be just looking at the document. Here is evidence based and outcome based. So each and every process material quantification has to be seen, and if it is if it is a focus material like hazardous material, then there is a different type of activity has to be done. So in that process, along with, because we are now the fourth largest economy, and after 3 years we will be going to the third largest economy. So we should learn from the developed country what they have done already, and we should not start from the scratch and making our own audit system and creating our own standard. So we should align our companies who are doing the good job and we have a robust environmental compliance. And also another important thing is data compliance. So because you are dealing with the many electronic products which are having a significant amount of data, and in our country also we have a DPDP Act now, and their fine is also 250 crores. So for informal chain, that data may be compromised and it is coming to the formal net, then also there is a compromise. So I'm saying, if you are growing our industry, who are supporting our circular economy or sustainability of the electronics and any other sector, we should also take care of international global best practices, how they are aligning with that, and also the international standard.
Sandeep ji, one more question, something which you have already done in past when you were at the MITI. Something like your experience on cluster formation for informal sector upgradation. How to provide requisite skilling training, offer health and safety kit, hand holding with low cost technology. Something quickly on this aspect.
Very good, Nividji. I'm happy that you have reminded me that one of my important project I have initiated once I was before leaving the ministry, and this is going on. And I'm happy that Imtiaz is telling that they have done similar type of things in near Bhopal,
Yes.
but they have just left without handholding with the technology. We are doing the technology also. Because as we all know, I think all the listener in the webinar, they should know in MSME, there is a CDP scheme, Cluster Development Program scheme. So there 70% government of India is supporting, 30% you have to collect your own. So if you have a informal operators cluster, you can create that cluster. So that cluster have to find out the 30% of the fund, and 70% will come from the MSME ministry. But for that, you have to create a detailed project report. You have to get the approval from the state government. Then you have to submit that report to the MSME ministry. Okay. Then it will get approved. Then finally, if it is approved, the fund will start coming to that, SUV, special unit you have created. And what METI did, we have onboarded few accelerators who will be taking our indigenous technology we developed for last almost 20 years in different lab. We have given this technology free to those accelerators actually to handhold 30 different cluster in the country. So that is, I should say that is a pilot project for us. So it is actually, we will be giving a entire learning to that informal ecosystem, how it can be done. So I am thinking, if we are successful, because this is actually painful, Pransu also knows, because once you are working with the state government, it is real challenge. Nobody will be giving you the land, and getting the informal cluster near the land is also impossible. And whoever is working in certain near the city, they will not be, because if you are recycling, that require a brown zone or red zone, area. Okay. If you are actually extracting the metal. So that is not possible in the city. So you have to shift those, informal operators to 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers away from the city. That is a real challenge. And you are getting a land that will be much more costlier. So those problems we are facing, of course, but still I'm hopeful, if you are having that cluster implemented in the country, that will be the showcasing of 15,000 informal operator converted to the formal entity, because you are taking a government, grant. So you have to, develop another formal entity, and you are now having a indigenous technology developed by CIMAT or NML or CPET. So those technologies we are handholding in a free of cost. Then this accelerators will be helping them to install those machines and finally operation of that machine. And 6 months they will see the metals are getting extracted or plastics are being processed properly, and then they will leave that site. So what I'm saying, this is the pilot. If the 30 you can create in the country, this will multiply to 300 and then 3,000, then 30,000 in the country. And in some day, this 30,000, so you are actually roaming around 2 million informal operator now. In future, I am saying you have to discuss with the 30,000 or 10,000, this type of entity. Then the Hindalco or Adani can take the black copper, black mass from those entities. So that was my vision. So that is how we have initiated that thing. One thing I should mention, if you really interested to solve any problem, you accept that problem. For accepting that, you have to give this informal operator as an entity, as a stakeholder. There are 3 different versions of the rule. In nowhere in the MOEF has mentioned informal is a stakeholder. But in our country, it's waste management. Informal is the first major stakeholder. So you have to find out, only our Ministry of Electronics and IT has considered that and initiated that project. And due to my push, because this type of offbeat project, generally any ministry will be interested to fund, because a lot of challenges are there. But anyway, I pushed this project is running, and this can be taken up by other agency to use that CDP fund. So that is our learning.
इम्तियाज जी, क्विकली, सुब्रजीत के रिपोर्ट में एक रिकमेंडेशन है टू डेवलप सिटी स्पेसिफिक प्लान फॉर सर्कुलरिटी along with informal सेक्टर. आपने भी भोपाल और इंदौर में काफी काम किया है. कुछ अपना एक्सपीरियंस से आप बता सकते हैं कि ये सिटी एक्शन प्लान कैसे होने चाहिए टू मैनेज वेस्ट फ्रॉम डिफरेंट सेक्टर्स? इम्तियाज जी, आप म्यूट हैं.
अभी जो भोपाल में हम लोगों ने जो प्लान तैयार हो रहा है अभी करंट के अंदर, उसमें हम लोगों ने कुछ सजेशंस दिए हैं, और उसमें जोन वाइज हम लोगों ने कुछ ऐसी जगहें आइडेंटिफाई की हैं जहां पर हम इन कबाड़ी वालों को, रैक पिकर्स को, इनके थ्रू कलेक्शन सिस्टम एक पूरा डेवलप करना है. जो आपने एक MRF हमारा रूरल में देखा था, ऐसे हमारे 15 MRF भोपाल के डिफरेंट एरियाज के अंदर है. जो मैंने अभी कि अभी में जो स्पेशल व्हीकल पर्पस स्कीम के तहत जो एक लैंड हम लोगों को आइडेंटिफाई किया है, वो गवर्नमेंट से हमारा बातचीत चल रहा है, वहां पर हम इस टाइप की एक फैसिलिटी डेवलप करना चाह रहे हैं. और जो अभी चटर्जी साहब ने जो बात बोला कि शहर के पास में हमको जगह नहीं मिल पाएगी, तो इसका एक अल्टरनेट ये है कि हम शहर के अंदर ही जो नालों के किनारे अनहेबिटेड कुछ छोटे छोटे एरिया होते हैं, जो कि 500 मीटर होते हैं, 100 मीटर होते हैं, उन एरियाओं को टारगेट करके हम एरिया वाइज ऐसे कलेक्शन सिस्टम को डेवलप करें, और उसी लेवल पे हम सेग्रीगेशन सिस्टम और बैलिंग सिस्टम डेवलप कर दें. तो ये पूरा मटेरियल वेल क्वालिटी का डेवलप होके हमारा जो वेस्ट क्लस्टर है, या जो वेस्ट पार्क है, या जो हमारे ऑथराइज रिसाइकलर्स हैं, उन तक जा सकता है. तो सिटी में हमें प्लानिंग ऐसी करनी होगी कि जहां जिस एरिया में रैक पिकर्स है या व्यापारी है, उनको वहां हम एक ऐसी फैसिलिटी डेवलप करके कारपोरेशंस के थ्रू दें, जहां पर उस वेस्ट को वो प्रोसेस कर सके, उसकी क्वालिटी को डेवलप कर सकें और उसको आगे बेच सके. इससे कारपोरेशंस को भी इनकम होगी. जिस एरिया के अंदर वो जगह आइडेंटिफाई करके इस टाइप का सेंटर्स बनेगा, उससे एक रॉयल्टी जो होगा वो म्युनिसिपल कारपोरेशंस को मिलेगी. इससे उनको 2 फायदे होंगे. एक तो उनका वेस्ट प्रॉपर तरीके से कलेक्ट होके रिसाइकलिंग के लिए, प्रोसेसिंग के लिए जाएगा, इसका पूरा एविडेंस और ट्रेसेबिलिटी उनके पास होगी। सेकंड, जो जगह वो एस्टेब्लिश करके दे रहे हैं वहां का एक रॉयल्टी अर्बन लोकल बॉडीज को मिलेगी। और तीसरा, जो रैक पिकर्स उस एरिया के हैं या एक आम आदमी अपने वेस्ट को अगर बड़े दाम पर देना चाहता है तो उन पॉइंट्स पर लाके वो वेस्ट को दे सकता है, जिससे कि ट्रिपल लाइन के अंदर बेनिफिट जो होंगे वो कॉर्पोरेशंस को ही मिलेंगे और एक अच्छा वेल एस्टेब्लिश मॉडल जो होगा इस सेक्टर के अंदर बन सकता है।
Subhrajit, any last comment from your end? How to improve the system or how to improve the ecosystem?
Thank you so much. A last comment is actually maybe a difficult comment, but we need to change the point what we can understand from different stakeholders. And there are multiple issues, thousands of issues, and the issue is there. We can see if we go outside of our room, we can see everywhere the waste is lying. We need to change the outlook, maybe how there should be a change, how this India should look like in future. And a waste-free India is possible if a collaborated effort of all the government bodies, all the stakeholders, not differentiating informal, rather all the ministries together, we can come up with some idea, brainstorm, and certainly we can build a better environment. GST is one of them. Today we discussed that. Maybe we are looking forward for more dialogue on GST and certainly rationalization of GST in near future, so that we can build a better environment, better habitable environment.
Thank you. Pransu, any last comment?
Yeah, so I think some of the points are extremely valid that came up. Not some, I would say everything. What is important is first to acknowledge the problem at hand. I think that acknowledgement is at many times missing. If we look at for example, Imtiaz started with the EPR, frauds which are happening, and Sandeep ji also alluded to it. And News Laundry came out with a report just a few weeks back. I think that's just the tip. The issues are so much larger in the whole context. So how do we make sure that we acknowledge first of all that EPR has not given the desired results? Today, if we look at the reports which are being filed or the data sets which are available, as per them, over 70% of e-waste has been collected and recycled. If we look at the EPR filings, if we look at the plastic waste filings, over 100%, almost 100% of plastic is being collected and recycled, whereas the reality is starkly different. So the point is, again, this is not about finding faults or who's doing wrong. It's a big change which is to come, and system will take time to mature. How do we take even small steps to sort this out? It could be by maybe breaking down the GST in different steps. It could be by looking at eco parks. It could be, but acknowledging that these are the issues at hand, because it will not solve itself magically. So my simple point is, how do we take even small steps to solve this very, very crazily large problem? That is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep ji.
Actually, if you just discuss this issue, I'm just seeing from 2007 to till date, lot of things discussed. Somehow the narrative starting from EOS management, we have started propping up with the circular economy, resource efficiency, vocabulary we are doing around that. OS stream is being done the similar fashion. I'll be actually interested to give a disruptive suggestion. Whoever actually investing in recycling business or refurbishment business in the country, they are actually serious businessmen. We should be giving them a free space to operate like other industry. So in that fashion, for material, for any industry you see, your input material, your decision. Whatever you are selling, it is your decision. That is why the business is growing. So I should, if I am the again policy maker, I am outside the system. So I'll be allowing them to import waste material as an input material from outside, and first of all stabilize or establish your company. then there will be a healthy relationship with the informal sector to, get the real value. It is not artificial value, real value of the material based on the acid test of the, that is also possible to be done. There are many labs who can give you the actual quality of the material. So that can be done. And then informal will be getting a better price, because we know about the Amul model. In 1971, it has started. The milk price was based on your density. Korean has done. So similar thing. Actually, in India, we have a lot of best practices within India, but we never learn. But there are best practices how informal sector and made the formalization. So I think some of the disruptive thought process we should do to actually infuse the new energy for our recycling industry. Because if you are pushing the digital technology as our economical development, another 10 years, this recycling industry will be the greatest contributor of our GDP. That is my assessment.
Thank you. Imtiaz ji, any last comment?
सर, मेरा आज का जो डिस्कशन हुआ है, इस डिस्कशन के बाद मैं चाहता हूं कि कोई एक ऐसा मंच आपके माध्यम से मिले गवर्नमेंट के लिए कि जहां पर सब लोग बैठ के हम एक ड्राफ्ट या हम एक मॉडल क्रिएट करके गवर्नमेंट को दे सकें, और साथ ही अगर जो पार्टनर्स हो उनके साथ मिलके किसी एक छोटे शहर में, जैसे अभी बनर्जी साहब ने कुरियन साहब का अमूल का एग्जांपल दिया, तो क्यों ना ऐसे एग्जांपल हमारे देश में बहुत सारे हैं। हम किसी एक सिटी को, किसी एक छोटे टाउन को लेकर हम एक बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस वहां पर शुरू कर सकते हैं सब लोग मिलके, और उसको हम आइडियल बना के, एक मॉडल बना के हम पूरे देश के अंदर उसको रिप्लिकेट कर सकते हैं। तो बातचीत बहुत हुई है इस सब्जेक्ट पर, अब काम करने का वक्त है। तो क्यों ना कोई एक छोटा सा शहर लेके, एक छोटा सा टाउन लेके हम वो तमाम चीजों को उस वहां पर लागू करें, और जो जो उसमें प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, इश्यूज हैं, उनके सॉल्यूशन को लेके एक जगह इसको हम इंप्लीमेंट करके उसको फिर हम देश में आगे बढ़ाएं। तो मेरा इस मंच के माध्यम से सिर्फ यही अनुरोध है कि वर्कशॉप, सेमिनार बहुत हो गए, अब कुछ इंप्लीमेंटेशन, कुछ एक्शन की बात होनी चाहिए।
धन्यवाद इम्तियाज जी। With this, I would like to conclude here. But it's really disappointing to hear, if I go back 10 years back or 15 years back, the problem which we have discussed at that time remains the same. Today, I thought I am talking something very interesting, GST, but as Imtiaz Ali ji said, still small players are being harassed with so many licenses, so many paperwork. But the good point is, as Imtiaz Ali said, we need a platform. It could be a good starting point. Sandeep ji has said, there are many good practices. We need to document it and bring it to the focus of policymaker. Pransu talked about how recyclers are ready to take the burden. Now, government has to come out with some kind of innovation to have place for such thing in the system. Or just as Subrajit has said, we have to talk about waste-free India, and it will be only possible if we are able to create an ecosystem where informal becomes a part of the proper formal system. With this, I would like to conclude here, and still a large number of people are there. I would like to inform them. Tomorrow again, we have got a very important webinar on how India moves. Our Director General Sunita ji will be there. Please register and join. With this, thank you very much, Pransu, Imtiaz ji, Sandeep, and thank you very much, Subrajit, for your report. Thank you.
Thank you.